Hey students, this is Coach, and we're going to go over one of my students' games. This is Sean. At first, I was going to just do an outline specifically just for him. However, this applies to you all. So I will be covering a few things that all of you need to understand at this point in your chess journeys. Even if you are a younger student or a more beginner student, this still applies in the long term. But these are fundamentals, and I tell you guys all the time, in order to be a professional, you want to be, I don't want to say perfect, but you want to be almost flawless when it comes to your execution of those things. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So Sean went 3-1 this tournament. He should have went 4-0. But in his first game, which was a really good game he played, by the way, he fell short because of a few things that I tell you guys all the time. But through this game, I'm going to hopefully create a more memorable um, example of what we're trying to achieve in all our games. So let's get started. So E4, D6, we're going to the Pirc line, of course. This is all normal. Everything's perfect. Now, C5 is playable. I mean, all C5 is good. Knight takes E4 is good. Honestly, these are potatoes. It doesn't really change the game that much, okay? But knight takes E4 is it's okay here, just as much. All right, so we got the Benoni set up, so this is all fine. This is all normal. Correct, correct. This is all fine. Playing good here. That's fine. Although the engine wants bishop G4. Look, once again, I don't really care about what you guys are doing at this point. Your opponents aren't going to really punish you too much for these moves, but bishop G4 does pin the knight. But bishop D7 is looking to push on B5. Here's the issue though with B5. You can't actually play it because you lose the rook. So how you often, if you want to push on B5, what you have to do first is like something like a knight D7 and then a rook B8, and then you can play B5 because there's no rook that is vulnerable to recapture. If you decide to play B5, so just bear in mind if in these Benoni Binko was not, but it's not Binko, but in these Benoni structures, you want to play knight D7 if you want to push. So just remember that, everybody, because this applies to you all. So when you have this pawn set up, you gotta play here first. In fact, you can even play knight D7, knight F6 if you want to. But if you want this bishop, but the thing is, why I like bishop G4 is because it gets the bishop out the way. Then you can play knight D7, rook B8, and then B5. So, side note, once again, all this is fine. There's not really much going on here in terms of what I want to cover. It's just this check is here, so just be careful with that. That's a back rank check. Opponent missed it. It would have been pretty gruesome. Oh, they do play it. Okay, it's not the end of the world, but it's challenging, and it's understandable. Like this, bishop G3. That's once again, I'm not really worried about this. Your opponent finds that they're pretty strong. Now we did make a pretty big error here. But I don't think your opponent took advantage of it. Yeah, they played queen takes. Now the thing is, do I expect them to see rookie one? Maybe if they took their time. Let's see how fast did they move here. They have 28, 55, 4. Yeah, they thought about it a little bit, but not long enough. So let's start with objective number one. Let's start with bullet point number one. Time spent on trades. If there is a critical trade that involves queens, bishops, knights, rooks, even pawns, and when I say critical, it's not like okay, I have no choice but to take here. If there's a order of how you take, you must spend about 2 to 3 minutes running various variations in your head to make sure you find the best route. And often what I say to you guys all the time, and this is really the most important point of this video, is if you decide to capture a piece and it is a trade and it is an equal trade, it is not a good move because we only should be looking to trade if it causes an imbalance. When we trade, if it just causes an imbalance, there's something that you missed. And what I mean by there's something that you missed is this. If you trade and you don't see an advantage for yourself, 9 times out of 10, it is an advantage for your opponent. Because why are we trading if there's nothing that changed the dynamic of the game? It means I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'm going through various scenarios. I just want to do something and not lose too much time. And once again, this is the heart of the conversation. 30 to 50 seconds is not a lot of time. It is not as if this person spent 5 minutes thinking about this move. It's just that they felt uncomfortable and they just jolted. When you feel uncomfortable, you must dig deeper. So you have two responses in this situation. Either you can dig deeper and deal with the discomfort of the confusion or ambiguity, or you can just impulsively move, which is often what a lot of beginner novice to 1500 intermediate players do. You just jolt. So you need to psychologically prepare yourself to deal with the discomfort and the ambiguity by just simply thinking longer. Simply thinking longer will allow you to properly assess the situation and make the best move. So this goes deeper. So this is the first mistake of the game, big mistake of the game by actually it wasn't Shun, but it's by the opponent. So Shun is now fully back in the game. I kind of understand why it wants you to play knight b6 because it's kind of like a fork. It takes some understanding of why this works. So once again, I'm not really I don't really care about you seeing this, but it would be nice if you did see this in between move. We actually discussed this on a call, without the engine's assistance. But yeah, knight b6, is the best move. Um, because once again, it goes back to the same thing, guys. If I trade, is it helping me? It's just a trade. Like taking on b4 is just okay. If you take on b4, what is the purpose? There really isn't one. It's just I want to be active. You're still fine. You're technically still winning, but gotta like recognize that just because you can trade doesn't mean you should. You need to have a good reason. This once again, this is communicating. I don't know what to do here. Yeah, okay. Well, I think when we did discuss this, you were worried about like this move doesn't do anything. Not what does knight g5 do? Even if they play it, let your opponent initiate things. Prophylaxis is only important where if the move they make destroys your position or causes a avalanche, or maybe even a snowfall effect of how it can impact your position. But this move doesn't do anything. So there's no need to be proactive about this. You need to instead be aggressive. We talked about this in the game. Let me turn the engine off because I don't even like these arrows because they're really unnecessary. At this point, we don't need this. Turn this off. We don't need that. Okay. It's pretty. I mean, we should just be able to look at this and tell. So rook c8 for various reasons. Remember, in the end game, you need to get your rook on this. Basically, you want to get the second rank for two reasons: either to prevent the opponent's king from being engaged, and or to attack your opponent's pawns. So this is a very low priority. The highest priority should be getting my rook to the second rank, eat pawns, repeat. So h6, knight d4. So see, look, the thing is, Sean, you in particularly, you know the best moves. Just sometimes you don't spend enough time, and you're like you can't consistently, and just for everyone, you can't consistently be one move behind. Good. So the thing is, you want to get on the second rank. That's more impactful because you have more room, you have more control, you have more. I don't understand. Maybe this is a map slip. I feel like that's a map slip. Once again, these pawns can't do much. This knight needs to get like this knight is not employed. The knight to e5, do something with the knight. Like this knight doesn't need to be. Oh wait a minute, this is the wrong variation. I'm looking at this is not the game. Sorry guys, hold on. Here we go. So I was looking at the wrong variation. I don't know what that was. Oh, maybe those were. recommendations. Yes, recommendations. Okay, anyways. Rook needed to go to c8. Let's get back to the actual game. Here we go. This is the crux of the game. A takes b5. Once again, we're trading y. Now, if they take, they do win the pawn. That's true. So you do have a good reason to do that here. But here's the reason why you don't actually want to trade here. So first off, the fundamental thing is you want your opponent to initiate the trade first. Is this initiating trade? Maybe. But what we discussed was potentially, an in-between move, which is knight c5. So we discussed why knight c5. Well, it does two things. It attacks this pawn. It gives your opponent the potential to make a mistake, because if they take here, you still are attacking this pawn. They have to keep this bishop on this bad diagonal to keep it out, because if this bishop leaves, and let's say, for example, they do go to e1 to protect this pawn. Well, now we have the advantage. Why do we have the advantage? A, this bishop is on a worse square, trying to defend this pawn. Either way, this bishop has to either babysit this pawn, because you don't want this knight just to freely attack this. And you're not basically. I need to attack a pawn. He's attacking my pawn. I need to attack a pawn. But this knight is secure. It's doing two things at once. It's protecting this pawn and attacking the pawn. So at any point in time, if I am able to, as black, to get this rook involved, then this pawn is going to be in some trouble. But that helps. The thing is, now the bishop's on a really good square. That's really the point of what I want to discuss with you guys. This is going on 12 minutes. I think it's 15 minutes total. Because the thing is, I want you guys to be able to look at a video without it being so long, but get some good nuggets from the call. So let's break this down. So first off, why am I trading? This should be you should write this down. I would say, like with Bart Simpson on the beginning of The Simpsons, where he has to write this down on the chart, like he has to write down like a certain sentences on the board as punishment every single time. So that they make it as a play into whatever the episode is going to be about, or some kind of joke. What I want you guys to do, in all seriousness, is to maybe even write this down a few times every week, or whatever the case may be, or at least read it every day. If I am trading, I should be looking for positional imbalances that favor me, which can be in the form of either a positional strength. It may be a material loss for us if we trade, but if it allows for us to get some kind of positional initiative that's really strong, that leads to us winning the material back or using threats to win the material back, that's great. Or if we initiate trade, it just immediately leads to us winning material at some point due to another move. However, there is no in between. If you are trading and there is zero, like in terms of like you recognize that for yourself, there's no immediate benefit to yourself trading, then like I said before, 9 times out of 10, you are more than likely are helping your opponent out, because you don't understand why it helps your opponent. You don't see it hurting you, but you don't see it helping your opponent, and you're missing something. So when you are trading, it should only benefit you. There's no such thing as an equal trade in chess for the most part. If you're initiating, if your opponent initiates an equal trade, more than likely it's going to help you in the long term, because it's going to put your pieces on a better square. Like, you usually don't want to be the person recapturing. I mean, you usually want to be the person recapturing, because usually if you recapture, it's because you are now in a better place with your piece. So you don't want to initiate trades fundamentally for that reason. Don't initiate trades unless you see that it helps you immediately. There should not be any question about it. So taking this pawn, it's just, there's no good reason in terms of like I said before, the very simple reason is, well, they're going to win the pawn. But you should always be looking for in-between moves that create imbalances. Now, this is an immediate imbalance. So I always look for in-between. So this is what you guys are at this point. 1200. Wants to be either 1200 or R 1200 and wants to be 1500. You must begin looking for in-between moves instead of capturing. That often favors your opponent because you just want to remove the pressure. Last thing is you guys have 28, 26 minutes. And so let me look at the time here. Yeah, 28. Yeah, I mean, you guys are playing what a 30, 30 plus 5. Once again, it's just moving too fast. I would say at 24 moves, you should have more closer to 15 to 12 minutes. At least 15 minutes, but that's a whole other story. That's not the scope of this video. So we're past 15 minutes, but once again, why am I trading? Does the trade create an imbalance? If not, why am I trading? If you can't answer that question, you shouldn't trade. Continue to think until you find a good in-between move. If there are no good in-between moves, then there's no reason to trade. Now, in this situation, even if you are pressed about this, you can even push the pawn. You don't have to trade often. It's just best to just not trade at all. But now, if your opponent is taking a piece from you and you had no choice, that's different. Long as your recapturing doesn't lead into a loss, then that's fine. I mean, I feel like that's the only exceptions. If you don't take, you lose, and so that means you need to think longer. Think longer. If you feel like you have no, if you ever feel like you have no choice but to take back, unless it's an automatic, like simple capture, you're missing something. Take 2 to 3 minutes to think about the moves. All right, I think I've said it enough. This is all about trades. You've seen it from the person playing white here. They missed the move here. They played queen to c8 because they weren't sure what to do. I don't know what they thought this was going to turn to, but it's just an equal trade. Queen, queen, bishop, bishop. The black king is now in a better square. There's no pressure for white now. Black has alleviated all their problems. Thank you, white pieces. Whereas black later on started trading, with no clear goal in mind. What am I trying to accomplish? Does it help me? Now, this move isn't that bad because it opens up the rook to c8. So this one's not as bad. This is the one that gets you in trouble. The a takes b5 because now the bishop's on b5. And, just it gets a little bit more difficult, whereas, you have an advantage. But this was a great tournament from you, Sean. Once again, this is just tough at this point. Because once again, you're still trying to trade. I skipped to this point on purpose. You're still trying to trade. We'll make this 20-minute video. You're still trying to trade. So I'm going to start going over some of your games, students, to help you guys universally understand what collectively as a unit needs to be done. But universally, you guys need to evaluate your trades better. Stop trading with no true reason. You want to be on the side of recapturing more often, fundamentally speaking. If you're initiating trades, more likely you're doing something wrong. Now, you do want to initiate sacrifices if it leads to a good position, but just equal trades, nothing's truly equal in chess. Unless it's, like I said before, if it's those automatic, okay, we both just trade, let your opponent do that. You shouldn't be saying, okay, let's just trade. Like, if your opponent does that, they're trying to prevent something that they had a good reason to. You're not preventing anything because you guys are usually winning your games. Here's the thing. You're winning. There's no need for you to try to prevent something. Stop trying to be prophylactic about certain situations. You're winning. You don't need to be prophylactic. The only thing that you guys probably should do should be creating loft at times. Like, if your king's on a back rank and you have a free move, yeah, h6 is okay. But if your king has freedom, and usually you guys are playing Pirc, so your king should always have either access to g7 if the bishop's not there. If not, then h6. But for the most part, your king is always safe because you can either drop the bishop back. You have levers to protect yourself, and it's important to keep the queen on the back rank in certain situations. Queen c7 is actually universal. You want your queen on the back rank until you start pushing up the board because you want this queen to kind of help you defend until you're on the attack. So remember, in the hypermodern, you are creating imbalances that take longer to develop, but once you have the imbalance that you need to take it to control the center, then you start moving forward. So you have to be patient. All right, guys, it's 20 minutes, but once again, the focal point. Why am I trading? Does it create an imbalance? That simple. Really, that's the only. That's the really. It's the outline. I made it like more. I feel like I made it a little bit more complicated than it should have been. But at the end of the day, that is the focal point. Ask yourself, why am I trading?